Hi, this is Rob Smith from Bain Data Solutions. For more tutorials and information about services I can offer, go to baindatasolutions.co.uk. Okay, this is the third part of the series about making an animated bubble chart using VBA. So in the last part we set up an array which put in all our static data points, and as I mentioned, that kind of sets up a series of tables, as I like to picture them. So a row for the first dimension is the rows. So here we've got our X, Y, and Z, which in our instance is the footfall, sales, and size of the shop. The columns are the second dimension, so we've got one for each one of our shops, and the third dimension is one for each month. And in effect, what the array that we've now got is setting up a series of these small two-dimensional tables, and I like to picture them as one for each worksheet, and that gives us a more traditional way of displaying a single bubble chart, so without the time series in it. And the idea of our project is to iterate through all these pieces of data without these big clunky jumps that we can see if we would just move between data points without having any sort of smoothing. So the next stage is going to be setting up an array which contains far more data points than these, but just moving between this first point and this second point, and so on and so forth, till we get to our 27th month value. So first of all, we're going to need to calculate the number of points that we're dealing with. So let's have a variable called long points as long. Let's set that long points is going to be equal to, it's sort of like when you're thinking about this sort of thing, the number of horizontal bars you need to separate fence posts. So if you've got 3 fence posts, you don't need 3 horizontals, you need 2. So here we're going to have number of months minus 1 times by the number of gaps. So if you have 3 fence posts and just say there's 10 pieces of wire, 10 pieces of barbed wire in between the two, then you don't need 30, you need 20, you need 10 times the number of fence posts, and then you need a final one on the end. So there we go, and now we can dimension our array, which is all points, and that's still going to be 3 because we've still got 3. We've got X, Y, and Z, and then it's going to be the number of series. So a number of series count, and then the final one's going to be this long points. Typing's awful tonight. And then we'll dimension a variable to keep. Going to set up another loop now to loop through all our sub data points. So let's have a variable for the gaps, so we'll call that G for gaps, and we'll have a long for the points position, so what number position we're on overall. So if we're at our in between the third and the fourth static data point, and we're in our third gap, then we'll be on third would take us to 20, so we'll be on 23. So let's set up this loop first of all. So for int month equals 1 to months for int series equals 1 to int series count, and for int g equals 0 to int gaps minus 1. When we're looping through here, we're going to need to put in a point at the fence post, if you like, at our static data point, and then carry on going until just one before the next static data point. So our position tracker point position is going to be equal to, it'll be the month that we're at minus 1 times by the number of gaps in total. So again, if we're at on the third one after our third static data point, so we'll be at 20, and then we need it to add on the gap number that we're at. Sorry, and then we're going to need to add 1, because if we're starting at 0, then our first one should be 1, and the one that we get to at the nth data point should be n minus 1 times the number of gaps plus 1. So at our sixth data point, at our sixth static data point, if we've got 10 gaps, then it should be the 61st rather than the 60th. So we're adding 1 there. Let's just close off our loops, and then we'll work on calculating the subpoints. So next in series and next in month. So what we're essentially trying to do is work out we've got to work out our x, y and z values for the points in between our static points. So let's dimension some variables. So let's have double 1 and double 2 as double, and let's also have an integer for the metric that we're dealing with. So we can have that as 1, 2, 3. So for int metric equals 1 to 3, close that one off as well. Next int metric. So let's establish what our first point is. So if we're going between January and February, this would be January's value. So we've got these in our main points array, and that'll be int metric, which was our first dimension. Then it's the int series, which will be 1, 2, 3 or 4, and then our month, which will be int month, and let's copy that for our second point, and that'll merely be the same with the month plus 1. And then our array all points, oops, where am I typing? All points, so that'll be int metric again, int series again, and then we can use our long point's position as the final dimension, and that's going to be equal to the first point, and then we want to find the fraction of the difference between the points. So the high point, the second point, minus the first point, so divided by the total number of gaps between them. So this is like setting up our a fraction, so this is the denominator in a way, and we'll times that by the gap that we're at. So let's see, parentheses, I don't need that last one in. Okay, so have we closed, did we close that one off? Rather too well. And put too many lines in for some reason. Okay, we now should have our array of subpoints. The only sort of complexity is that we also will not have populated our very last point. So for the very final time, we've got to add in the last point, because we only went to -1 on our gaps. There's probably a neater way around this, but let's just do this manually. So it's going to be equal to the main points for, well, we may as well use this for int metric equals 1, 2, 3. So int metric and our int series again, and int the total number of months. So oh no, our last long points, in fact. And we can copy that in, but then it'll just, at the last one, it'll be int months. So I'll retrieve our final static data point. And series. I mean, next int series, obviously. Right, let's just try running that. Subscript out of range. So it's on our last month. Oh, we didn't need to go to the very last month, so let's try that. F5 again. Right, so ostensibly that seems to have run. So we'll leave it there for now, and in the next part we'll have a look at getting the actual data into the chart and setting up the chart and some of the formatting around it and making it look good. Okay, speak to you soon.